The first of the round towers that we're going to make are the two center wall towers. And the piece for the wall and the roof can be found underneath the lightweight chipboard section under center wall towers. So here are my pieces for the walls and the roofs. And then also over here I have some chipboard circles, and those are out of medium weight chipboard, and you can find them under the round tower supports. And the center wall tower, we have some supports which are 1 1/4, and then the roof base, which is 1 3/8. I also have two 3/16 inch dowels here that I have cut to the same height as my walls of 4.5 inches. The way this construction works is that on these smaller circles we'll punch a hole directly in the middle, thread them on the dowel, and then the wall piece will wrap around that construction. So first we need to mark center for all of our little discs here, and I have my circle template, and I've just attached a piece of, this is patty paper, it could be any kind of scrap paper, to the back of it with some temporary adhesive. And then I put some temporary adhesive in the 1 1/4 inch spot, and now I'm just going to center one of my discs there, and then I can use the lines on this template to mark center. And I'll do that for all 6 of my 1 1/4 inch circles. And then using my crocodile on the larger setting, I'll punch a hole at the intersection on all 6 of those chipboard circles. So I'll do that and then I'll be back. Now that I have my holes all punched, I'm going to take 3 of them and thread them on a dowel. The 2 will be right at exactly at the top and bottom, and 1 will be somewhere in the middle. It's not critical that it's in the exact middle. So I'm just going to use a little bit of glue. And then put that on. Then put some glue in the middle, and then some glue on the top. And then I'll check to make sure that everything looks like it is staying plumb, and let those dry. Now while our little internal supports are setting up, we can do some scoring. I've already done the scoring on the walls. Our cutting guide specifies that we'll do 1/8 inch scoring parallel to the 4 1/2 inch side. So that means that you score every 1/8 of an inch parallel to this longer side, and that'll help these sides curve more easily. And then when I cut these semicircles, and here it says for the roofs, you cut a semicircle with a 2-inch radius, and that's what this is. But we only need it to be 165 degrees, and a semicircle is 180 degrees. So I just use a piece of black so hopefully you can see this more easily. Here's my center point on my semicircle, and I'll line up my protractor. Once I get my protractor lined up, I'll just set the gauge to be 165, and then I can just make a little tick mark there. It's right in the corner there. And then I can go from the center point to where that tick mark is, and I can cut this piece off. I don't need the whole 180 degrees. So I'll do that on both of my semicircles. So I've got my semicircles at 165 degrees, and I also want to draw an arc. And I'm just going to tape these down so it's easier to draw this arc. I'm going to set my compass to 1.5 inches, put it at the center point, and then draw an arc that's 1.5 inches. And that'll help us with when we go to place our roof base in there. We will have a line to help us guide it. Now, in order to make these are going to be shaped into cones, and in order to make them shape more easily, we're going to do some scoring. Make sure you can see your center point on each one of those, because what you want to do is line up that center point with a line on your scoreboard. Now, I just happen to have one line inked here. If you don't want to ink on your scoreboard, use a Post-it or something, so you can always aim for that same one. And just start out by making a score line, somewhere in the middle, doesn't really matter. And then keeping this center point down here on that center line, rotate this up here at the top so that the mark you just made either goes to the next 1/8 inch marking, or to the left or the right, and go ahead and score it. Now, I only take about every other one all the way down to that point, because otherwise that point will start getting a little bit ragged by the time you're finished with this scoring. So just go ahead and score around the whole semicircle, and do that for both of your roof pieces. So I just finished scoring my little semicircles, and now I think my support pieces are set up enough to work with. The first thing we want to do is check the length of our walls. Now, in the cutting guide, they are purposefully made a little bit long so that we could cut them to fit. So I'm just kind of training these to want to, curve a little bit better, especially right along the two outside edges, just kind of working my way down. And then you can put it into a tube, just so it wants to curve. And try not to get any dents in it, but if that happens, that's okay. Paper will eventually be going around these. So now I've got that pretty well trained. And so now we can just take it around one of these support pieces. And look, we want to just have these meet as close as possible. So just kind of look down there and see where they're overlapping. Make a little tick mark so that you can cut that off. So I'm going to make that cut and try it again. Just testing it on both ends, and that looks good. So I think the easiest way to do this will be just to kind of get it started with some wet glue. So I'm just going to put about 1/2 inch or so kind of in a line here on each of the ribs. And then put the side there. Go ahead and twirl it around. And then just use a rubber band to hold it in place. Now obviously the only thing that's going to get glued here is that first 1/2 inch. But it'll be a lot easier to do this if the whole thing isn't all loose, is what I have found. So just get that first 1/2 inch going, put a rubber band around here, and then let that set up for a while. And while that's setting up, we can go back and work on our roofs. Now for our roofs, we drew that line, and that's going to be on the inside, that 1.5 inch arc that we drew. And now I'm just kind of forming this. We're going to form it into a cone. It's going to be straight up to that center point, so basically it's going to come together like this. So just kind of work it a little bit, be a little bit gentle with it. Until you have it so that those ends will butt up against each other like this. Now here I have a piece of cardstock. It's 1 inch wide right now, and it has 1 inch score tape on it. It has not been scored in the center like our usual joining strips are, because I want this to stay pretty sturdy there. So I'm going to take up here at the top my scissors and just kind of make a little angled cut. It's nothing precise, just something that can come in there and help go up there to the top, and then see about how much I need to make that join. I'll just cut it off down here. And then I'll remove this tape backing. And on the inside, get that about centered there. I'll give that a burnish while I still can on that side. And then kind of curve this a little bit. And then bring it around so that you can butt those ends together, and keep your eye on this bottom end down here, because you want those to be as close to perfectly matching as you can possibly get. And then come up here to the top and then reach in and burnish that all around. And then we can just use our scissors and trim off any extra of this joining strip. So there's our little cone roof. And then the 1 3/8 circle is going to fit down inside of here. And it should go just about on that line that we drew with our compass, that arc line. And that, you can just use some wet glue and put that in there. So now our tower should be set up enough to work with, hopefully. And what we can do is we'll take, see if this is long enough, yes. So we'll take just another one of our 1 inch joining strips here, and I'm just going to cut it to length. This is going to go on the outside here because obviously there's no way to reach in and burnish it. So we'll just go ahead and get that attached. Need to trim it just a little bit more. Give that a burnish. Then we can go ahead and put wet glue on the remainder. It might be easier just to put it on the, at least on this top and bottom ones, to put it on the chipboard. And for the center one, we can go ahead and put that around on the disc. Then I'm just going to roll this up and kind of keep it as tight as possible. And when I get to this other end, I'll just check my ends and make sure I'm getting a butt joint there at the top. Give it just a little bit of a squeeze and come down here and make sure I'm getting a nice tight butt joint down there at the bottom. Now on the center of the column, don't put too much pressure where there isn't anything behind here. So remember just to only put pressure where we have those supporting discs. Burnish gently. And you can check your discs on the top and bottom. It's not absolutely critical that they are flush, but you may want to use your craft knife. You can gently pull them up a little bit, and that's how you make the column. So I'll go ahead and repeat that for my other side. So here are the two towers and the two tower roofs. I'm just going to run a little bit of the bead of glue right up here in the crack on the tower roofs and just kind of encourage that to stay together up there a little bit more. It's going to be covered with paper, so that's not totally necessary, but I just thought it would be a good idea. And yeah, so that is the two center wall towers. The next tower that we're going to work on is the second level tower. There's just one of these, and pieces are listed on the top of the lightweight chipboard. It's made basically the same way as the center wall towers. The only difference is it's a little bit taller, so then there's 4 discs on the central 3/16 inch dowel. So that 3/16 inch dowel has been cut to the same height as the walls, which are 5.5 inches tall. And then from the medium weight chipboard, the second level tower supports, we have the 4 at 1.5 inches, and the roof base is 1 at 1 5/8. So again, to get our center point on our discs, I put some temporary adhesive down on my template, and I'll just use my ruler to mark the center points and punch the holes for all of those 4 1 1/2 inch discs. And then for the roof, the cutting guide says that for the roof we're going to have a semicircle. We'll start with a semicircle as we have before, but we'll cut this to 115 degrees. So 115 degrees. So I'll just take my protractor and line it up there and swing this around to 115 degrees and make a mark. And then I can connect that mark, get a regular ruler here, to my center point. This will be cut off. And then again, let's make an arc that we can use to line up our roof base on. This circle has a radius of 2 7/8, and I want to bring that arc a 1/4 inch or 2/8 back from the edge. So I'm going to set my compass to 2 5/8. And I'll just tape this down like we did before. And then run this arc, and that'll give us a placement line for our roof base. So I'm going to cut this off, and then I'll make my scores just like I did for the other roofs, and put this together just like I did before. So I'll come back to you in stages and show you just to remind you what the process is. So I started out by finishing with my hole punching and gluing up my support unit, and I set that off to the side. And then I scored my roof piece here, and then to help get it curved, I'm using a kind of a trick that's kind of like ribbon curling, I guess. I'm just using my bone folder, and I'm keeping, making sure I pivot around this corner here, but that, if I pull it up like this, it kind of wants to help it think about curving the way it should curve, especially for this kind of a tighter cone. Any little trick you can use to get it to want to go where you want it to go is good. So yeah, so that's pretty good. It needs just a little bit more working here on these edges, and then I think it will be ready. I've cut a piece of my wide cardstock joining strip here. This is the kind that is not scored. And I've made kind of a steep angle here at the end, I think you can see, just because this particular roof is so much more pointy and tall. And then just kind of bring that in like we did before. This one is narrow, is probably the narrowest one, so it's kind of the, I don't want to say it's the trickiest one, but it's definitely the one that may take the most fiddling with to get it exactly how you want it to be. Remember, we're going to cover all of this with paper, so you know, don't get excited if it's not perfect. Supposed to have fun making these creations and not stressed out about them, so there is that. And I'll just take my scissors and give that a little cut. And then I have my circle that I can use. I'll make a little sling or handle, however you want to say it. And I'll put a bead of glue around there, and then I can put my roof base in there, and that line should be pretty close to where you want it to go. If not, you can kind of use, since this one is kind of closer to the edge, you can use just the amount of edge you have showing. Or if you'd rather just wait till your tower is finished, you can put it together at that point. So next I'm going to just wait till this is thoroughly dry, and that use the same technique that I did before to attach the walls. You can see I've just got this with a rubber band on it right now, just so that it's kind of encouraged to want to curl around there, so it's all ready to go when I want to put it on. So that's where I am at this point. So my walls have been attached for the first ½ inch to all the support pieces just like we did before, and now I'm ready to add glue along the edges and the central wheels. You can see here, I hope that I've already attached a cardstock joining strip, so I'm ready now to make this into a circle, and I've got some rubber bands here at the ready. So I've got my glue on here. I'm just going to wind it up and come and make sure my discs are in the right place before I attach it down. Looks good. Up here at the top, I'm just going to attach that kind of a little bit right there at the top, and now flip it down here to the bottom. Check out how things are going down here. Need to come around a little bit better. There we go. I can tack that. Then I can peek in here on the centers and see how that's doing. And bring my joining strip together there. Kind of supporting this as I give it a burnish here. Don't worry if there's a little bit of bump out, because the paper won't, be exactly attached on there, so it'll be fine. And then if you want to, just right at the top and the bottom, just on the edge, you can put a rubber band, but actually the cardstock joining strip does a good job of being a clamp on each end, so it's probably not really necessary to have the rubber bands. So that is our second level tower. There's its little rooftop that goes on it. So we'll just set those pieces aside. I am going to mark this as the second level though, on both pieces, just so I don't get confused. So, second level tower done to this stage.